Hey, I am with Yaegel, and you play Tom Robinson in To Kill a Mockingbird, which I think is probably the most difficult job of all of them. Even Atticus, even more difficult than Atticus, because you sit there throughout much of the show without saying anything.
Mhm.
How difficult is that? I mean, just watching this whole kind of case transpire and hearing this night after night. What is that like?
Yeah, yeah. It is a difficult job, but it's also true to life. During that time, during the Jim Crow, during the South, which is when this production takes place, 1934, Black people didn't necessarily have agency, and that would be true to any Black man or Black woman who was in a courtroom, even if they were offered the opportunity to be in a courtroom and have, a quote unquote fair trial. Um, and so everything is still happening and simmering because people are interacting with me on stage. I just don't have the agency to respond back until I do when I get on the stand. Uh, and
And what
so,
is that like? What is that powerful for you when you do get to talk and you do get to say something? Or is it, I mean, I would be very emotional.
uh, uh, it's more than anything, it's terrifying uh, because you have to say something in a room where you might be killed for, um, it's like walking a very thin, tight rope because you can't come across too strong. You can't seem to put a white woman down. You can't say anybody lied because a Black person can't say a white person lied at that time. It's a crime. Um, and in the same breath, you know how this logically is likely going to turn out. And your family is there, and you're being accused of things that you just wouldn't do, that would never cross your mind. And so uh, there's a lot of fear, more so than anything, and everything that comes along with fear, anxiety, distress. Um, yeah, like what they're doing is I'm like a dog that they're teasing freedom with, and they're holding a freedom stake above me and saying, here it is, here it is, here it is. And they're going to snatch it away, but I'm still like reaching for it. And I have to get it to survive. But as we know, I don't.
How is it though in this environment? I mean, is it really, are you making a difference with the show? Do you see that people are, paying
I hope
attention?
so.
We have this same thing going on now, which is just ridiculous. How many
Mhm.
years later? And this is still going on. And I can you sense anything changing with people who are at the show?
Yes, I did the show on Broadway for about 2 cycles. And the first cycle was before the pandemic, before everybody was sitting at home watching George Floyd be murdered at the hands of the law. And we get to coming back after the pandemic, and people responded to the play just fine before that, but it was really more about the nostalgia of the piece. There didn't seem to be like an impassioned involvement because they knew the story
Sure.
of what was going to happen with Tom Robinson, but it was just like we're seeing our favorite book that we grew up with, live on stage. After George Floyd, um, there was a sort of rage from the audience, with the right and wrong and the call and response. Uh, and so when the now taking the play around the country, there's more of that. But there's just been so many stories. There's Keenan Anderson. There's Tyree Nichols. So there's this energy that this is still happening, and people are passionately on the side of Tom Robinson and the injustice, and and against the injustice that's happening in this particular production,
Do you
because they
know
can see that it's wrong.
do you notice different responses in different parts of the country? I mean, is it like, okay, we're here, it's going to play differently than it might play in the South or in the North or in the West?
Yes and no. Different places. The response is unanimously positive with the play. We can almost guarantee that people are going to, stand to their feet, and like people across the country have loved the play unanimously. I think the difference is there's a cultural difference in terms of like how and when people respond. Like some communities are just quieter, but they're having a similar experience. Some communities, particularly when we're in places like where they don't have like the theater is like the only one for miles and miles around.
Sure.
Well, they're coming like it's a football game, and like they're rowdy and excited, and the family is there, and like they're a little more lively, and ready to laugh at all the funny stuff and ready to participate in those ways, but not in terms of the social justice stuff. People are unanimously, on the same page that they can see that this is wrong, which is a testament to that America has grown some where racism can't be so overt.
Right. But it's still there, sadly.
It is still there. It is still there, but at least they, like what happened in Minneapolis, that police officer made no effort to hide it, and there were consequences because we have cell phones. We have cell phones, and we can prove that this is
right.
That this was murder. In the past, there were no cameras, so people could get away with it.
It was one person's word against another, and
yeah. Well, it's interesting. Well, they say Tom Robinson died because he was trying to jump a fence, so they shot him 17 times. Now, if we had a camera, we could prove that
right.
That a one-armed man doesn't climb a fence. You know what I mean? Right. Any more than a dog tries to fly.
What was your experience before this with To Kill a Mockingbird? Had you read it? Had you seen the movie? Had you done anything with it? Or was it just, one of those books that's out there that people say that you should read?
Oh, no, of course. I think I, like most kids in America, had to read it in junior high school, I believe. I also worked on, I earned my equity card doing another tour of a different production of this play in Boston. And so To Kill a Mockingbird's been in my cosmic universe for a while. And when I saw that they were auditioning for the piece, I said, well, I think I could be in that. It called to me. And when I got back to the city, they were auditioning for the new company for Broadway. And I said, my agent got me in, and I felt it. I was like, I'm right for this part.
Were they different, the two productions?
Yes, there's another production that went around 4 years, and but Aaron Sorkin decided to sort of make it. I think the difference is that production is probably a little more true to the book in terms of the world of the play in and of itself. If you were to take it and just sort of make a carbon copy, as Aaron Sorkin's wrap the book in bubble wrap and bring it to the table and say, here it is. But Aaron's production, what makes it special is he takes a piece of the story that is really relevant for today and still manages to put in and weave in and out all of the zany characters that you get from the book and Boo Radley and those storylines, but he sort of ties it and centers it around the trial of Tom Robinson. Now, the trial of Tom Robinson is only 2 chapters in that book, but he centers it around everything leading up to that and how that transforms the Finch family.
Calpurnia, to me, seems like she gets a bigger part in this, too, than I remember. But maybe I'm, I have a different memory, I guess.
No. Calpurnia definitely has more agency. Her and Atticus's relationship is more intimate. It's less employee-employer. And no, they are indeed friends, like brother and sister, sort of co-parenting these 2 motherless children, family. In that way.
You have the original scout with you guys.
Yes.
Do you guys ask her questions about the movie and what that was like and all that kind of, or is it was so long ago that what do I remember?
No, Mary Batten is such a sweet, sweet, sweet lady. No, she's always an open book, always eager to share old stories. And Mary also grew up. She didn't grow up in 1934, but she grew up. She was born in the 50s, sure, and reared in the 60s, and so she grew up with people who grew up with certain traditions in the South, and so she has fond memories of the world because she also was raised partially in Alabama. and so and Virginia, and so she's always willing to share stories about her experiences on set. Of course, a lot of things that were happening, she wasn't allowed to be in the courtroom during certain parts of the Tom Robinson trial
Right,
because kids weren't allowed.
right.
Um, but but she, she has many fond memories, and she's still in touch with a lot of the people from the movie to this day. Gregory Peck's children are some of her good friends that she's, sort of grown with, and so no, she's lovely and she's an open book.
How many Atticuses have you played with? How many different ones have you been with?
Oh God, that's such a personal question. I'm joking.
So bad, so bad. But were you
um,
with Jeff in the beginning? Were you?
I did not. I covered the role for 2 seasons on Broadway. I performed it with Ed Harris. Um, I performed it with Ed Harris a sufficient amount of times, and I performed it with
Greg Kinnear,
another.
did you have him?
Yes, Ed
Okay.
Harris. He was there in 2019 to early 2020, right before the pandemic.
And then, but did you get Greg Kinnear? He was supposed to do it at some
Oh,
point.
Greg Kinnear. Yes, Greg
Yeah.
Kinnear.
And then
Greg Kinnear, we only got to work with him for 2 days because he got COVID, and then Broadway took a brief shutdown again, and after that, but
so you
Greg
had the
was,
big COVID break there then. And did you think,
yes,
will it ever come back?
I had faith and I hoped. My fingers were my fingers were always crossed that it would come back, but it was scary because when we originally left, we were told we're taking a week off and we'll be back in rehearsal on Monday. And then it was like, no, it's probably going to be about 4 weeks. We're getting back to you. No, probably not till July, probably not till the fall. And like that went on for a year and a half.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
oh, yeah, it was terrifying. And what changed were the two big changes, because I was in New York City when all this happened, when people started wearing masks, people stopped getting sick as much on the streets, because New Yorkers were on top of each other. And the other big change was vaccinations. And when people got vaccinated, people can come to the theater and people, stop getting sick in droves, and we could show up to work. And also testing really helped secure our jobs. Now it's to the point where a lot of that stuff doesn't happen nearly as vigorously, but that's because all that work has been done and people don't contract, people aren't contracting the
Sure.
virus.
It's
And
not
it's really helped out.
as frightening as it was.
It's not as frightening as it was. And at one point in time, people used to have to show up to the theater vaccinated and wear a mask. Now we don't ask people if they're vaccinated, nor do they have to wear a mask. It's sort of up to people if they want to take that risk or not. But I think, the evidence is people aren't getting sick coming to the theater anymore because a large portion of society is vaccinated. And, some people do choose to wear masks on their own, but a lot of people, in fact, most don't. But the good thing is most still aren't getting sick. And
Right.
so it really has changed the theater. And I feel like theater is back in a big
Oh,
way.
I can't tell you how excited I was the first time I got to go back to a show and then really feel like, because it gives you so much. Live theater gives you something that you can't get from any other. I mean, we can watch streaming like crazy, but until you are among the people that are performing, you don't know what it's like. And I'll tell you, I cried the first time I went back to a show because I thought, oh, we're back and I didn't lose this. And I was really afraid I would. Richard, though, what's Richard like as Atticus?
Richard is the sweetest, nicest man. He is Atticus Finch. What you see is what you get. Um, he's the most welcoming person. He has been a star for a very long time since he was 21 years old, I think, or maybe that. Yeah, I think around there. And you wouldn't know it. He's the liveliest person in the room. He can be the life of the party. He's always sharing jokes. There's no celebrity distance. He is just himself, and he's the kindest, warmest man, and one of the best scene partners a person could ask for.
That is so cool. Now, before you did this, you were in The Play That Went Wrong, right?
Yes.
That is like, it must be the most difficult show in the world to do. It seems like, oh my God, is everything going to be timed right so it all falls apart? Or is it
Yeah,
not?
we did that show here in Omaha at the Orpheum as well. I want to say back in, it was 2018 or 19.
Right.
And that show is a gym. It's a lot of it's physical comedy. Everything is timed to a T, so everybody is safe. Everything is rehearsed to the nines, so everybody is completely safe, and everything is happening in a rhythm. You know, it's less about um, like what moments that are being created. The moment is created, you got to hit it when you need to hit it, because if you don't, the wall's falling. And
And
so
they will fall. Yeah.
and they will fall.
Well,
And so everyone, you have to stand in the same places every night in that show. You have to make sure. But it's so well rehearsed that even though it's the play that goes wrong, nothing is going to go wrong, because you know, to be honest, people's lives are at stake.
what a wild shift from that to Kill a Mockingbird. I mean, wow. Is that fun to play that kind of range? I mean, it's like, what isn't there that you can do? I mean, you must be able to do it all now.
Like, it was kind of great because I did them back to back. And after doing a comedy for a year, I said, oh my God, I don't want to do any more comedy. Let me do something dramatic, real and meaty. And then To Kill a Mockingbird comes into my life. And boy, did I get something dramatic.
You got what you wanted, right?
I know.
Right? Well, how exciting. How long will you be on the road now? How much more is there to the tour? Or is it just open-ended?
As of now, I will be on the road until July. But we've been on the road since March. So when it's all said and done, it was more around 17, 18 months.
So what comes next? Have you thought of that yet? Besides a long rest?
I know a long rest is definitely needed. Definitely a vacation or something. But what I am thinking is, I have this dream, this vision of me being on a television show for 7 seasons and growing a character from season 1 to season 7. And if it extends longer than that, great. But I want that experience. I want to grow a character, the same character in different circumstances.
And make big money, right?
Hey, that would be awesome.
We want that big TV money. That's how that goes,
we
right?
We do. Yes. Absolutely.
I know that. Well, thank you so much, and good luck with this. I love the show. I think the show is just a real life changer. And thank you for bringing it to people, because they need to see it. This isn't one of those kind of optional shows, I think, where you say, oh, yeah, I don't need to see that. This is one people need to see. And
absolutely,
you should be very proud that you're a part of it.
Thank you. It's a privilege to tell this story. It's a necessary story. And I agree with you. I think it's worthwhile for everybody to see it. And more than worthwhile, I think I dare say, with what's happening in society, it's mandatory viewing. It's mandatory viewing. There's a sense of healing that can come because it brings us all together on the same page in one moment. We all stand for justice when we see injustice happening before our eyes, much like what happened with George Floyd.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was my pleasure talking to you.
Yes, it was great to talk to you.